Hello everybody, Steve at Isopod Factory doing the late night Monday routine. This is my day. I typically stay late and do extended maintenance feedings and things I can't always get done throughout the typical Monday through Friday work week. Having a ton of isopods is a lot of care, but I wanted to take some time tonight and discuss tech. It's not a very much touched on topic, in my opinion, from what I see around the community. There's definitely a lot of useful tools out there to help you keep track of your isopod's environment, temperature, humidity, things of that nature. And I want to make a point, and I'll probably say this a few times throughout, is you don't need any of this stuff to be successful with isopod keeping. This is not a requirement. You can do just as well with or without extra tools, but if you're a little bit of a techie like me, you like gadgets and making things a little bit easier, then I hope you will enjoy this. So there's several tools we use here in-house. Some I'll have to take the phone off the mount here in a little bit and walk around because they're kinds that are more directly mounted on the enclosures and are a bit more of a chore to take off than to just show you. But these are all the bulk majority of the Govee thermometer, hygrometer models that we use here. There's pros and cons with each and every one. There's a few models in here I haven't included because they are technically discontinued and I only have a few of them left. Once they crap out, they will unfortunately be no more. But as with anything, there's always new stuff coming out, better stuff, things that make the everyday, mundane, repetitive chores of keeping up isopods, just a little bit easier, let you keep tabs on the environment. You can catch a potential disaster before it happens if you get these set up right. So I'm not going to talk so much about how to set them up and how to program them to your phone. Anybody, I think, if you're not 90 years old, no offense to seniors, you can figure out how to do them. I'm always happy to answer questions if someone wants to send a PM as far as implementation goes. But I just want to do kind of a brief overview on some of these models and how we use them here and how they can help your isopod keeping daily upkeep just a little less time consuming. So we'll start with this guy here. This is the H5107 model, and don't mind the label tape. I have my own system of how I keep track of them. I have spreadsheets. I'm probably way more in depth than 95% of you out there are ever going to need or want to be, so I'll spare you that. But this is a great little thermometer, hygrometer. This little hole right here is where the readings are taken, and I'll show some examples here in a bit of how I actually put them in there to get the best results. So what I like about the H5107 is it has an IP65 rating. If you're not familiar with what IP is, it stands for Ingress Protection, and the numbers, the I goes 0 through 6, the P goes 0 through 9. I'm not going to break down the IP scale, probably information overload, but I will just very surface level touch it just so you can have a good understanding of what we're referencing. So 6 is actually the highest rating. So the first number is for foreign objects, which in most cases is dust, particulates. Obviously, you're not going to get a big chunk of something in here, nothing bigger than this hole, worst case. But 6 is the highest rating, which means it is dust tight. And you can tell, if you take the back off here, this is achieved. If you see on the lid here, there is a nice little rubber gasket that goes all the way around. So when you pop this on, it takes 2 AA's, which they do include, by the way. When you pop this on, you get a nice little snap, and you have a tight seal around there. Now, again, most of your isopod enclosures aren't going to be extensively dusty. Maybe if they dry out a little bit, but you're not going to be throwing handfuls of sand and something like that on these. So they work very well in my experience. They last a very long time. We have a large number of these, and I feel the amount that I have and have replaced over the years is very acceptable. I don't have a solid number for you, but I don't know if I have 20, I've maybe had to replace 1 or 2 over the course of a couple years. So they last a very long time. And they're not too horrendously priced. You can get them on their website, Amazon. And by the way, all of this stuff, none of this, I'm not a sponsor. There's no links in the description for you to click. Just search up Govee thermometer, hygrometer on Amazon, go to their website. That's yours. I'm not here to get clicks for, commissions and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a good product and something I wanted to share for you out there that maybe want to level up a little bit with your isopod keeping and have a little bit less of the guesswork in terms of, is my enclosure too warm, too cold, too humid, not humid enough. So H5107, solid temperature and humidity reading option. So we'll set that one to the side. And this one is Govee model H5110. Now, there is one significant difference here in terms of how you use in your enclosure. This actually has no IP rating, which means it's not really designed for high humidity. And I use these on my enclosures where I always have a gradient. So these are always on my drier side. So these really are not subjected to high humidity very much. I occasionally douse the dry side on most of my tanks here and there, just to, don't always want it to be bone dry. So I'll occasionally zap the drier sides, and it doesn't really seem to mess with these, as long as you don't spray them directly. So compared to the H5107, here's remember the probe where it reads the parameters. This one is actually on the side, these little 2 holes here. And when I set them up, I actually put them to where this is facing down towards the substrate. So I feel like you get a fairly accurate reading there as far as what the temperature and humidity is. One other important point with anything here that's thermometer, hygrometer, is you need to understand this is measuring the air temperature and humidity, not your actual substrate. So you're thinking, well, what's the point of using them then? If your isopods are in the dirt or under cork bark, I mean, that is correct. But you can get a correlation of what these read to what your soil is, if that makes sense. So these I usually have on my moist side because, again, these are IP65 rated, full dust protection. The 5, I think I forgot to touch on that. The 5 is about middle of the range for water protection. And simply put, it's any jet of water that is 1/4 of an inch or further away. But again, I don't spray these directly. If I use the water squirt bottle method with some of my enclosures, which I do periodically, we have other tools for hydration, but I'm very careful not to spray, especially around where the probe, where the readings go, because that's a good way to mess it up quickly. I very carefully spray around it, under it, make sure the water doesn't go straight into these areas where the electronics are. So IP65, you can use this for a dry side too if you're worried about it. There's nothing wrong. I just choose to use these. That's just my preference. So this has all of the same great features, less the IP protection. So that's something to think about. The price difference on these is it's a little bit. It's not a lot. It's a nominal. These are nominally less. But again, I use these on my dry side, and I've seldom ever had any extensive problems. Even if I've kind of accidentally sprayed them a few times, but because this is facing down, usually it doesn't get in there. But if you're careful, it's really not a problem. So H5107, H5110, 2 different types that do the same thing. And by the way, I know there's no visual on here. There's, of course, an app, as there is for everything. So some of these models, as you can see, these actually do have visual. You can just look in and see what it is, but everything shows on the app. So these are kind of our staples. So I'll set these aside. This is an older one we kind of started with. This is H5051. So this one kind of follows the same principle as the previous. There is no IP rating, so you have to be careful with this one. Again, on some of my bigger enclosures, I'll use these on the drier side where, it's not consistently a high humidity. And again, I'll be honest, I have ruined a few of these accidentally, but if you're careful, I mean, they last a long time, and these actually use 3 AAAs. You can always tell there's no gasket. So there's really, when they advertise these, they say things like a cigar room, a nursery, maybe a low humidity, stuff that's not, like a tropical jungle, and they work pretty good. You just don't want to get these too humid, saturated, or waterlogged, or you may end up with some problems. So again, H5051, and I did fail to mention all of these are Wi-Fi, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi compatible with the app, so you can know your Isopod's enclosure parameters any time of the day, anywhere in the world. If you're connected to Wi-Fi, you just open your app and you can see what's going on with all of that. So this one I believe is H5103. So this one's a little bit bulkier. This one uses, I think it's 3 AA's. So yeah, these tend to last a long time. But again, no IP rating, so you got to be careful with these. And I know, there's always some risk, and these may not be practical for everybody. They probably aren't for just someone who has a couple. But, if you just understand the IP rating and you're set up your enclosure right, use caution when you're adding hydration, you really shouldn't have any problems. I haven't. The ones that have messed up are kind of my own fault. So, and you see it says a little frowny face because the parameters, I pulled this out of one of my enclosures. So the parameters right now are not where I've set them to be because, it's not inside of an Isopod enclosure. But, everything shows on the app. You get alerts, notifications if your parameters fall above or below whatever you set them at. So that is the H5103. This is actually one of their newer ones I'm really excited about. And I believe, if I can see that, I think it's H5171. So this one actually does have, the nice visual, temperature, humidity. And this one is IP65. So this one is actually on par with this guy. I've been getting a few of these. We don't have an extensive amount, but again, you know how that goes with tech. Kind of want to facepalm, say a couple not so nice words because, I've got quite a few of these. And again, they're great, but I love that this has the visual. I don't have to open the app. It's not always convenient to have to pull your phone out, open the app, keyword search, the probe. Now, again, I have a very extensive amount of these. If you have a handful, it's not hard to find it. But I have a whole system of how I set them up. Most of these do use hubs if you want to Wi-Fi. So do keep that in mind. Some of them, I think all of them are at least Bluetooth at a bare minimum. But if you want the Wi-Fi, you have to get the hub. So they have options where the hub is included or you get like add-on devices. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into how to actually set them up and all that. Maybe I'll do that in a later segment or something. But these guys are really nice. I like the black finish and the fact I can just peek in, not have to pull my phone in my pocket or go hunt it down if I sat it somewhere, and I can see exactly what's going on in whatever enclosure. And of course, they're always, does that do it? Yeah, Celsius or Fahrenheit with the click of a button if you're one of the Celsius type people. These two, definitely a good powerhouse. These, still very good devices. Just keep in mind there is no IP rating here. So you are running a little bit of a risk. You got to be careful when you do your watering and such, not to make sure you spray water in where the sensor holes are. This one has the one on the side. But very useful, very nice tools for helping keep track of your Isopod's enclosure parameters at any given time. And this little guy, something I like. It's not a Govee product, but I just got my little power bank here. It's just USB powered, and you can put it into a brick with a USB-A, and you get a temperature reading. Now, what I like about these, and I can vouch, you can fully put this in the dirt. It's even advertised like for fish tanks. You can put it straight up in the water, and I have tried it. And gonna be honest, I don't know if it's like an actual brand. It's just one of those little Amazon things. There's probably 20 others like it, but I like this one. And if you see, let's see here. So right now I was just kind of touching the probe. But if I take this and just kind of rub it, generate a little heat, you can see it's very, very accurate. It's very sensitive. It's very, works pretty well. So, I'll drop that. And, in a matter of seconds, as that heat dissipates off the probe, the temperature will start to drop back down. So I do have these in a lot of my medium to large size enclosures, especially with burrowing species. These are very handy because you have your frosty gators, a lot of your cubaris types that are burrowers. That first couple inches or so of substrate, the temperature can be pretty vital, especially cubaris, where they like it a little bit warmer. So this helps me gauge at a glance, where my soil's at as far as temperature. No humidity, of course. You couldn't have humidity with something you stick straight down in the dirt. But I do use some seedling heat mats on some of my enclosures because they're very low wattage. They just do a nice, soft, it's not even, don't ever use a reptile heat pad is what I'm trying to get at. Those are designed to get super hot for, bearded dragons, iguanas, reptiles that need high heat. Unless you have a foot, 8 inches to a foot of substrate, don't use a reptile heat mat. I'll show you a couple of those in a minute, but we use seedling heat mats on some. They're like 4 to 5 watts maybe. So they don't generate nothing but a very low, soft, supplemental heat for your, more tropical type species. And it really makes a difference. So, but yeah, this nice little guy here is a good way to keep track of your soil temperature. So if you have species, like duckies or anything that they like it a little bit warmer, this can help you fine tune the parameters of your enclosure so you know where things are. Now this is straight USB plug-in. There's no Wi-Fi, Bluetooth connection, so just keep that in mind. I'm sure there's some out there, but these are pretty cheap and they actually work. It's one of those exceptions. It's something that's not expensive and it seems to work pretty well. I know I've got quite a few of these and they've held up pretty well over the last couple years. So I'll take that out. So let me take my phone off the mount here. Bear with me. There's a whole nother set of tools that I really like to use on some of our more advanced critters here. So for demonstration's sake, I'm working on my duckies tonight. So this is their enclosure. And actually right here is a good example of the H5103. And if you can see that, the readout is kind of ghosted. And the reason that is because, well, I kind of messed up. I must have messed up because my sprayer's back here. I know it was getting doused for a minute. So while it's still kind of working, that's usually a bit more crisp of a readout. So again, these ones that aren't IP65 rated, you got to be careful. You might end up inadvertently kind of jacking up your electronics. So use your best judgment or just use the ones that are IP65 rated, which is probably what I'll eventually do with all of these. Some of these, of course, weren't out. All the ones I showed a minute ago, yeah, a handful of those have only come out in the last year or so. And we've been doing this, I think, going on 3 years now, two to 3 years. So again, tech advances, manufacturers ideally listen to feedback and you just get better products ultimately. And obviously these aren't designed with isopods in mind. It's just a thermometer, hygrometer. So you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt of how you're going to use it and what your expectations are. So it's frustrating, but I can't sit here and get mad at Govee because it's not advertised as an IP65 and I put it in something that has sprayers and, well, the sprayer head probably got bumped when I was doing maintenance and it got sprayed several times, and that's not Govee's fault, that's my fault. So I'm looking around. There's one of the other ones back there I use for the dryer sides, which is on the left here for the duckies. And there's the H5051, which you can see there. And this is a low boy tank. So this is a big enclosure. I have one that's actually kind of in the middle. This is the H5107. So I feel comfortable using this here because, again, this is IP65. I'm not going to put it straight up in the dirt, but it can be pretty much right on the soil and, you know, give me a fairly accurate reading for whatever, you know, that small piece of real estate is. And again, there's another one over here kind of planted in the middle. I have it on a piece of polycarbonate that's glued to something underneath the soil, but that lets me set it up kind of in the middle. Again, this is a huge tank. This is a 4 foot by 2 foot footprint. So I have one sort of towards the left and then one kind of in the middle-ish and a few around the sides. So all of that data in the app, you can pull it up and it gives you a picture. You know, you can combine all that data, and you can even do side-by-side. You can kind of really see what's going on. And if you need to make some tweaks on your hydration schedule, or in my case, my sprayers, you know, sometimes these have to be taken off. We use RO water, but they eventually kind of clog up. There is dust and little things in the Isopod enclosure that get airborne. I periodically have to take these sprayers off and, you know, rinse them, soak them in vinegar for a day or two. And needless to say, we have a ton of sprayers that I just cycle them out as needed. So anyways, getting back to the other piece of equipment I was talking about, this is the heart of the ducky enclosure and many others. This is an AC Infinity Controller 69 Pro. So again, fair disclaimer, I'm not advocating a brand. I'm not, there's no links, clicks. I'm not getting paid. I'm just sharing good information on what I think are some good products to use with your isopods. And I'll try to keep up with the comments, but I'll likely just repost this on the regular page, and I'll respond to any DMs if you guys have any questions about anything I've shown or going to show. But it just, again, a quick disclaimer out there. I'm just sharing what I feel is good information, good products that work, no sponsorship or anything like that. So the Controller 69 Pro, there's a lot of stuff going on here. So if you look, let me see if I can zoom right there. If you see it, right there, there's a probe right there. And it's again, it has a thermometer. It does temperature and humidity. So on my controller here, I've got my temperature, and then here I have my humidity level. And again, you have to, when you have bigger enclosures, or even anything that's medium-ish, you have to consider this. All of this data here on this is from that probe in that one spot. So you have to think about that when you're using multiple tools like this, which is a good practice if you're going to do it, because if not, you're getting only one little area of data. And again, there's a lot of microclimates in here. Safe to say, I think anyone watching knows what a microclimate is, but this enclosure has a general temperature and humidity overall, but along the length here where the sprayers hit, maybe they don't hit as much, you know, the temperature and humidity can actually vary, you know, by more than a little bit, maybe not drastically, but enough, you know, for something like rubber duckies, you may need to consider, you know, if you need to make any adjustments. So, so if you look there, again, this is mounted. There's four, you can have up to 4 accessories hooked up. This wire here is the probe for the temperature and humidity. So I usually color code mine with zip ties because, again, it's just a bunch of wires hanging down, and some of these I need to zip tie up a little bit better, but disregard that. But green is for my fans or airflow. This one is for heat. So if you see right there, that's the seedling heat mat. And that's actually a big one because, again, this is a big big tank, it actually goes almost the whole length of the tank. But again, this is a seedling heat mat. It is not a reptile heat mat. Please don't use reptile heat mats with your isopods. You will 99% likely cook them unless you have a foot or something of substrate, which just isn't practical. Even for a big tank like this, this is only 10 inches high. But it's plenty enough for duckies. And if you can see mine in the reflection, they're all up in there. They burrow down. You can see them in the roots of this rainbow fern. I wish live would zoom or focus better. It just doesn't. But if you can see, there's definitely duckies all up in this substrate. So the seedling heat mat is a nice touch to keep that enclosure just a little bit warmer. Obviously, we're average room temperature in here. I keep it comfortable, maybe a speck above comfortable for most people, a little bit warmer, because it's better to have, in most cases, with a few exceptions, it's better to have your isopods warmer than cooler. So each number up here, yeah, hate this glare. There's 4 ports, and you can set within the app. Yes, of course, there's an app. Each accessory you plug in, the heat, the fan, the lighting, that's what the yellow's for. You can set it for schedules, cycles, all kinds of stuff. It's a really cool little piece of hardware to use with your isopods. They are more so advertised and geared for grow tents. If you're familiar with grow tents, it's just a kind of a controlled enclosure to grow plants, any kind of plants, house plants or whatever you like. But again, for the application of isopods, if you know the limitations and whatnot and you implement good, they're actually very, very handy, very useful. And yeah, sorry for the glare. I'm trying to get but there's a lot of good information on here. And of course you can get on the app. Along the side here, I can change which port number I'm controlling. There we go. I guess if I light it up, that helps some. So port 2, if you can see a little dot. So I have that set on a schedule. So it's on in the night because, of course, we're in the dead of winter right now. So it is comfortable in here, but it does still get a little bit cooler just because it's freaking freezing outside here in southern Ohio. And this little flashing thing is telling me that it's going to be 9 hours and 57 minutes until the heat pad turns off, because I have it off during the day. It's having it on at night when the temperature drops a little bit lower seems practical, and you can always change that, fine tune it. And that's the whole point of all of this stuff. There's a lot of customization and cool stuff you can do with it to optimize your isopods enclosures. So the fan up here, and again, I'm doing some work, so pardon the wire clutter, but this is more or less a ventilation fan here. So I have that set in cycles. I think it's something like it's on maybe 5 minutes every 4 hours, something like that. So that's really a key thing with all of this stuff, because I know if I have any questions, I can be like, hey, how long do I have the fan on? How do I cycle the heat mat, or, this and that. And while there's general, I guess what I call common sense stuff, everybody's enclosure is going to be different. I can take this whole tank right here, and if for whatever reason I were to move it to the opposite side of the room where these are, I may have to change the programming up a little bit, because how the ventilation is in this room, how the air moves through this room, where the windows are, where a little bit of cold might seep through, all of those things affect your parameters. And when you want strict parameters, especially for sensitive species like duckies and high-end cubaris, you got to dial it in. So what you have to do is set it up and observe. And all of these apps, Govee, AC Infinity, they have very robust apps, and that logs your data. You can go back days, weeks, even a year or two. I think it's up to 2 years on them. You can go back and see trends. You can identify, where spikes are. Hey, what happened here? Or if something stops working, these are electronics. The fan might crap out, and why is my humidity suddenly 100% 24 hours a day? It helps you troubleshoot and fine tune, or, replace things if they need it, so on and so forth. So that is kind of a brief overview of the AC Infinity ecosystem. Again, You can find them on Amazon. They have their own website, and they have a lot of stuff. It's kind of overwhelming, but there is a select amount of tools and things in their products that I have found are very useful to keep up your enclosures. And believe me, here's our duckies. When you have things dialed in right and you keep it right and you're doing your feeding, your maintenance, you know, you can have pretty cool stuff like this. So I am proud of my duckies. Don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but this one goes back to one of my first kind of what I call high-tech setups. And I started with a few became more, and more eventually became a redonkulous amount. So that's just one spot, and they like to kind of congregate here too. You can see all those. And that's what we're shooting for, right? That's what everybody wants when you get isopods. You want them to be, you want them to thrive, be reproducing, and be healthy, be active, and not just sort of dying off or having little, numbers just dwindling or getting smaller and smaller. You want them to get bigger and bigger. So again, let me re-emphasize, as I did in the beginning of the video, this is tech stuff. You don't need this stuff to be successful. I am not advocating that if you don't have Govee stuff and AC Infinity that your enclosures are going to be crap and you can't have a good isopod culture. That is absolutely not true. And hey, some people prefer the more hands-on, and that's fine. Having this stuff definitely takes some of the guesswork out, but the most important point of all of that, outside of you don't need it, is I want to say this never, ever, ever replaces good husbandry. Having tools, electronics, tech, gadget, it helps you paint a picture of what your enclosure looks like, what's going on, but that does not ever replace getting in there, getting your hands dirty, doing the work, and feeling your isopod enclosure out, because there's no better indicator of what your tank, your bin, or whatever looks like or how it's doing than you sticking your head in there, getting your hands in there, flipping things over, seeing where the dry spots are. These tools never replace that by any means. So I am also by any means not saying that at all. They're just a useful tool to help you achieve good end results, have a little bit more control, be a little bit more in the know about what's going on in your tanks or bins at any time of the day, any location. I do enjoy using them. And again, most average people especially don't need them. But again, I've kind of got a stupid amount of isopods here. So there's other tools that aren't electronic that we use. I've covered in other lives, but this really, really, really helps me stay on top of what's going on with the tank. I mean, again, if I was doing this all just by the look, touch, feel, and nothing else, there's some, I've got this other room in here. I may not get to some of these for close to a week. I try to feed at least every couple days, depending on what it is. Sometimes the food lasts. It's again, you have your culture size. Is it a new culture with small numbers, or is it something bustling with, a ton? All of those factors play into how often the tanks have to be interacted with. As a general rule, I try to leave my isopods alone. That's really a good practice. Outside of necessary maintenance, leave your isopods alone. That's the best thing you can do for them. Let them do their thing. They don't enjoy being flipped over and exposed and picked up and handled. They're like almost like fish. Look, but don't touch out of, unless it's out of necessity. You're getting them out, to sell them or trade, give to a friend, whatever. Leave them alone. Just let them do their thing. And more times than not, that's the best thing you can do for them. If you're a night owl, like I am, of course, I have a lot of lights. Some of the lights are on here. Most of them are off. They're on timers. But when most of the lights are off here, if I turn some more off, these guys really come out, and you'll really see them moving around and, doing their thing. So you can enjoy them, appreciate them without causing them extra stress by handling and whatnot. But I digress. That, I believe, should largely cover my 2 cents on pod tech. Again, there's other items. I wanted to really touch on the thermometer, hygrometer options, and monitoring. I feel like I may do a YouTube in the not too distant future. There's my needy cat. You know, where I can do some captions and just give a more thorough explanation for those. You know, I'm one of those nerds that I appreciate that kind of stuff. I want the full breakdown, the full specs and all that. But this is a live. I'm not trying to overwhelm anybody watching with information overload. But these are some of our other large enclosures. So as you can see, this is my St. Lucia. So again, it's a low boy. Again, I have a lot of the same tools in there I was showing earlier. What is your deal? What? Here, say hi. This cat is so needy, I swear. Okay, anyways. But yeah, here's one of those H5103s that's actually not been kind of waterlogged. You can see the readout's nice and crisp. Where in my duckies I was just in, it's unfortunately got sprayed a bunch of times, so the display there is kind of ghosted out, but it's still working for the time being. And yeah, you can see I have the whole AC Infinity suite on most of my big tanks here. Panda Kings, Montenegros, Expansus here, Succinctus, Marbleized, Bolivari. Those are all my, and so there's several more out there, but yeah, I think that covers it. So yeah, Isopod Tech, definitely an underrated, not so much covered topic these days. So I thought I would do this little segment on it. And like I said, I will repost this on the main account page. And I'll go through the comments here after I end it. If you all have any specific questions, please feel free to reach out. I mean, I'm always happy to help, even if you just want information. We are a shop, but you know, you don't have to buy something. I'm a hobbyist, just like anybody who's probably watching. Always happy to share information, learn. I learn stuff every day. I feel like I've definitely come a long way in this journey, but I'm by far from somebody I would say that knows everything, or I'm some kind of big authority. I feel like I've got a good foot in the game, but there's a lot to learn, and I learn from you guys too. So yeah, I'm open to anything, positive, negative, as long as it's respectful, please. We can learn from each other, do better, learn how to take care of our isopods best we can. And I think we'll stop it at that. Thanks for all who have watched, and any questions, comments, I'll check the log here. But yeah, please feel free to send a message if you want any specifics on the things I've shown. I'm happy to elaborate, explain, or anything else. So, all right, say goodnight, Needy. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.